It is Friday, and you know what that means.
Yeah!
Welcome, everyone, to episode 369 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, The F and Marks.
I'm Jay. He is.
I am the brainless one. And coming into this week, we had SummerSlam last weekend. It was the best way I could describe SummerSlam last week. I thought it had some pretty incredible moments, but it definitely seemed like SummerSlam was a reset for WWE, especially with a lot of championships. We have, let's see, what else do we have?
Quite honestly, my favorite piece of information that came out like last night, this whole week, is that, there is going to be allegedly a Killing Gawker movie with Ben Affleck possibly playing Hulk Hogan, and I cannot wait till they get to that one scene. They have to do that. They have to do that.
They don't even need Ben Affleck to play that part. They just got to replay that scene from the Gawker trial. Because number one, Ben Affleck should not be the one playing this role. Let's be serious for 2 seconds. I wish I had thought of it, but I would have came up with 100 people who would have been better at Hulk Hogan than Ben Affleck. And that's on the low end. I probably could have came up with more than that. Man, I did not even know that until last night, and I was laughing my ass off when I saw it. I don't know why they're doing a Gawker trial movie, but the good thing about this is if they are coming out with this movie and it does actually happen, I cannot wait because Hulk Hogan's definitely going to use that to peddle his lying.
Hey, it is going to be great. Allegedly, this is going to reteam the crew, possibly from Good Will Hunting. Gus Van Sant is the director. Matt Damon, Johnny Damon's brother, and Ben Affleck to tell the sordid story of Gawker. But again, the climactic scene is going to be in the courtroom. Literally, climactic scene.
Oh, Hulk Hogan.
Terry Bollea does not have that size of a wang.
No, Hulk Hogan does, though. I wonder who could actually vouch for that. I mean, Linda, I wonder if he's had sex with Linda as Hulk Hogan and as Terry Bollea, and she could actually tell us. I'm pretty sure Sky Daly has only had sex with Hulk Hogan. I am convinced of that.
Yes.
No, Sky, you definitely don't want to know how big Terry Bollea is, brother.
Yeah, so...
it's never going to not be funny.
You got that. Then we had sad news in the wrestling world that came out today.
I'd say we start with that then.
The Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, passed away, 74 years old. Kevin Sullivan had a long, long career in pro wrestling. He officially retired from in-ring competition in the late 90s, but continued doing stuff for like TNA, Ring of Honor, and he was on Tales from the Territories, and would do other things wrestling related. But I do remember the last couple times I saw him, I was like, dude does not look in good shape. Like he looked like he was struggling a bit, but he was one of the bookers, if not maybe even the head booker for a time in WCW. He did come up with the Dungeon of Doom, one of the worst factions of all time.
Shark.
He was part of the Varsity Club with Rick Steiner, Captain Mike Rotunda. There might have been someone else a part of that, but those are the three I remember a part of it. A dude who started from good old Boston and I enjoyed hearing the Boston accent all the time. But seemed like he was definitely a handful to deal with. When he was doing an angle with
Canadian redacted,
like he wanted to keep it kayfabe, and Canadian redacted, you need to. I know we're doing this angle, but you need to be in hotel rooms with my current wife.
very.
Which led to the actual breakup of his marriage, and then Nancy Benoit, getting together with Canadian redacted.
It's sad because honestly, all I remember Kevin Sullivan from was his days in WCW when he was leading the Dungeon of Doom, which I agree was one of the best worst. It is the room of gimmicks for a stable, is the best way to put it. It is literally it's like watching the movie Major League when they're introducing the first roster and there's Willie Mays Hayes and Pedro Serrano. Like, who the fuck are these guys? That's exactly what the Dungeon of Doom was when they took old Shark, who was the Earthquake, and they had, Brutus Beefcake was the Zodiac, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they just had all these interesting characters in the stable.
I think the Giant there, the Big Show, I think was part of that for a while.
That's where that's where Paul White got his debut. I want to say, I could be wrong, but I could have swore like Abdullah the Butcher was part of that at some point. I could be wrong on that.
At one point, the Dungeon of Doom, almost before NWO Hollywood Hogan, there was a point there in WCW, and I want to say it was like 95-ish, maybe early 96, where Hulk Hogan had gotten beaten down by the Dungeon of Doom, and he started wearing black, and he shaved the mustache off. Like, that was the weirdest thing, seeing Hulk Hogan like that.
It was, and I found out that it was Kevin Sullivan who actually shaved off Hogan's mustache during that rivalry, and that's why we got mustacheless Hogan that showed up at Bash at the Beach '96 and did his dastardly devious things. Yeah. And since I did mention that, when they were deciding to put together the New World Order, and they were looking for a leader to be the guy that was with the Outsiders, Hall and Nash. And they had pitched the idea to Hulk Hogan because, honestly, at the time, Hulk Hogan was stale with the yellow and the red being the real American. What you gonna do, brother? I mean, he was getting booed in WWE before he went to WCW. Right. And it was Kevin Sullivan who called the Hulkster and said, "You got to do this, man." He goes, "I know that you're used to being the good guy and always getting cheered. Believe me, Terry or Hulk, whatever one I need to talk to in this situation, I think you should do this because if anything, it's going to extend your career and you're going to be really good as a heel." And if you think about it, Hogan turning heel was one of the biggest moments in wrestling history. And to think that Kevin Sullivan played a huge role in that is just incredible. And like you said, he was an incredible booker. He had a great mind for wrestling. He really did. When he was working in Florida, I think it was Florida Championship Wrestling, where he kind of developed that like demonic character that he kind of had before he went to WCW. He was a visionary. Right. He was a visionary. He saw things and did things that wrestling had never seen before. He had a beautiful mind for the industry, and it's a shame that he is gone. Especially because he did say that he had a very huge pipe bomb he was going to drop in regards to Canadian Redacted, but it looks like we're never going to find that out.
All right. Steve Chambers in the chat is saying he remembers him hitting gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with cinder blocks and breaking his legs. I remember that. Also talking about how a lot of fans were blaming Nancy's death on Kevin Sullivan. It's like, at some point, like, it's not his fault. Like, yeah, what he did as a booker was stupid. He may have thought it was a great idea, but it was stupid. But, clearly there were some issues already going on between he and Nancy. So, she was probably ready to move on anyway. But, Nancy made her own choice to pursue that. And it's sad how it ended up, and it's not Kevin Sullivan's fault. I do also remember that there was a Falls Count Anywhere match. I want to say that it was on one of the Clash of Champions. It was not 13, clearly.
Clearly.
The greatest Clash of the Champions of all time.
And it's not even close.
He had a Falls Count Anywhere match against Norman the Lunatic, on which Norman the Lunatic, Bastion Booger, defeated him, and Kevin Sullivan came out of the bathroom with like the
seat cover,
the seat around him. And I remember him kind of like staggering out and like falling over, and yeah.
I need to watch that because I did not know that existed. So now I need to see this thing, and I've kind of given up my hopes of ever finding the Joey Janela Punjabi prison match from GCW, whatever the hell that shit was, because I've been trying to find it. I can't find it. I don't think they have the proper production quality that WWE does, that you can actually see the stuff in the ring, on camera.
Sure.
Especially if Joey Janela is involved. But now I need to see this with Norman the Lunatic, Bastion Booger. Me no booger.
So also in the Dungeon of Doom was the Barbarian.
Oh shit, that's right.
Mang.
Haku.
Hugh Morris.
Is that supposed to be funny? What? Is that supposed to be humorous? What?
And finally, the man that is one of the two, the dry-humped Hulk Hogan, the Yeti.
The Yeti was actually in the...
That's what Steve Chambers was saying in the chat.
Was the Yeti part of the Dungeon of Doom? Is that an actual, I know he had
I think the Yeti only showed up once, to be fair, but may have been part of the Dungeon of Doom because it was he and the Giant who were both dry humping Hulk Hogan.
Yes, I definitely remember that. I have
very
vivid memory of that.
10-inch lizard that Hogan has, I mean.
No wonder why they never saw the Yeti again.
Yep. Yeah, Steve, Sullivan's matches against Canadian Redacted in WCW were something else.
Yes.
I mean, I always knew him for being a hard-hitting brawler, and his matches were fun to watch.
Yes, absolutely. I know I've watched WCW a lot more further back than during the Attitude Era when Nitro was a thing, because I definitely remember seeing Kevin Sullivan and Hulk Hogan fighting the Dungeon of Doom and all that good stuff. I wish
for the Dungeon of Doom they brought back the Chamber of Horrors match, like when they electrocuted Abdullah the Butcher. Steiners did it.
Well, wasn't it wasn't it like Mick Foley pulled the switch after the Steiners did the switcheroo? Like one Steiner was in the chair and they took him out and put Abdullah.
You're right.
Then it was Foley that pulled
that. And
it was so bad, but it was so good at the same time, just because Abdullah the Butcher getting electrocuted. It's almost as good as when Marv gets electrocuted in the first Home Alone, when he turns into the skeleton, which is one of the single funniest moments in cinema history. But yeah, Abdullah getting electrocuted is just and they can do it again. Abdullah's still up and kicking. Not like getting like a 75-year-old Abdullah the Butcher in a freaking match where he gets electrocuted again. I'm all for it.
All right.
As long as Mick Foley pulls the lever.
Abdullah and Cactus Jack, their rivalry was quite something in WCW. It wasn't quite the Vader Cactus rivalry, but It definitely was something else.
Oh God, Vader and Cactus Jack was one of the best, if not the best, rivalry in WCW. I could watch the two of them beat the shit out of each other all day, every day. It's such good shit.
Yes.
Two kind of big beefy men, one really big beefy man and one kind of big beefy man beating the shit out of each other.
Out of each other.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Since we did mention WCW, we did get a return of somebody that we were thinking was going to return, excuse me, at SummerSlam on Saturday. And that was one of my personal favorites, so I definitely popped when I saw him. The Enforcer, Arn Anderson, is back in WWE. Glock Anderson, baby.
Yeah, it was good seeing Double A. Him reconnecting with Cody, and whether or not he does anything more substantial than just, the special appearance, I'm going to guess probably not, but it was cool to see him.
I'm always happy to see Arn Anderson, and I'm still to this day, him at like 67 years old or late 60s, however old Arn Anderson is now, I bet you any amount of money, nobody can deliver a spine buster better than he can right now. Single greatest. I could watch him spine bust everybody. It's beautiful. It's the best spine buster ever.
Yeah.
And I was very happy to see him. I know it was kind of a little, mixed emotions because it was Pharaoh's last hurrah on the road with Cody because, Pharaoh's getting up there. He's 13. So the fact that he had Arn and Arn was like, you got backup coming for you and everything. It was just great to see Arn Anderson. I'm always happy to see Arn Anderson.
Yeah. But
such good shit.
All right. Anything else you want to get into before SummerSlam? Because, SummerSlam filtered out to just about everything after that.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention before we can get into SummerSlam, and that was this week Shawn Michaels, who apparently stole the company jet as he was flying to wherever, made an announcement that on October 1st, the first episode of NXT on the WB, they will be back to traveling and going around the world instead of just staying at Full Sail University. He also announced that on the first one, September 1st or October 1st, which is in Chicago, Illinois, the Second City Saint CM Punk will be making an appearance at the first NXT show in the WB. And then the following week, I'm sorry, the CW, WB, isn't that the parent company, WB?
No, Warner Brothers Discovery is the parent company of TNT.
Oh, that's what it is. All right, so the CW, when they debut on the CW that second week, October 8th, they will be in St. Louis, Missouri, which means that they're going to bring in the 3 most dangerous letters in the history of mankind. RKO. Randall Keith Orton will be making his first ever appearance on NXT October 8th. Thoughts on NXT going back to kind of touring, and thoughts on them, the first 2 shows having CM Punk and then Randy Orton, Cousin Jay?
They have done a significant amount of work of, after what I felt was the disastrous 2.0 with the neon throw-up paint look. I understand what they were trying to do, but they had built that brand up to a certain extent. And I think literally that whole thing was the dastardly Voldemort was his way of chopping down his son-in-law. There's no 2 ways about it. He was trying to sit there, yep, you just don't know what the hell you're doing.
It was because...
So I'm going to take everything away, even though he had built that brand up from almost nothing to being able to sell out arenas during like big wrestling weekends, and people were super pumped about it. And then, Vince just decided he was going to be an asshole.
Wasn't it because
oh, yep, it doesn't have the momentum anymore, so I'm going to just blow it up. But thankfully, they have a lot of talented young people who work their tails off, and they still will occasionally send these veterans down there to help, one, not only lift the performers they're in the ring with up, but it's also giving the opportunity of getting perhaps bigger ratings, but also getting those people seen in a better and different light just because they're in the ring with those people. All that being said, when you hear how loud the crowd was WrestleMania weekend for Trick Williams, for all those different people in NXT, yeah, you could feel that there is a new wave coming about. Shawn Michaels has done incredible things. As good as Triple H was down there, I think Shawn Michaels is probably a better in-ring coach and how to get the most emotion from the performers, from the audience, and back and forth. And I think that's what's helped them the most as far as rebuilding the brand. And I think them getting on the road, for them, I would say they should mostly stick to smaller mid-size arenas and they'll be fine. When you have the look, like when they were going against AEW in the beginning, AEW was in front of 5,000 to 10,000 people. The crowds were raucous. And when you see if you were switching channels or going from the WWE network to what was going on AEW, it just looked vastly different because you had the big crowd and the big atmosphere. Being at Full Sail University does not always lead to having that feeling, having that vibe. So I think it's a great chance for them. We'll see what they do. I know that they were trying to do this before the pandemic. And the pandemic, I think, just stunted their growth for quite a while. It stunted everybody's growth for quite a while. I'm glad they're getting back out there. And I think this is going to be nothing but positive for them. It will get the performers down there seasoning in front of a different audience from different parts of the country, and will only help them round out who they are as a performer, because your shtick may work well in Florida, but is it going to work well in Idaho? Is it going to work well in Washington? Is it going to work well in Chicago? Is it going to work well in St. Louis? Them going to Chicago and St. Louis is perfect. Both are hotbeds for pro wrestling. They don't even probably need Orton or CM Punk to be there to do well.
But if
having those there are the rocket fuel for not only ticket sales, but I think it'll just hype up all the performers that are there to not bring their A game, bring their A+++ game, and we'll see which ones sink or swim. But, getting Trick Williams in the ring with Randy Orton, yeah.
I mean, think about when they had The Undertaker and all them down there. He went and he did the rub for both Carmelo Hayes and for Braun Breaker. And Braun Breaker even said it. He goes, that wasn't even something that was planned. He goes, that's just kind of unfolded last minute. And he goes, I was in the ring with The Undertaker, man. Because I was in the ring with John Cena. And now we've seen how that has transformed when we saw at SummerSlam.
Right.
Because things have changed and everything. But I agree with you. I think that they're just kind of like that extra element that's not really needed for the shows, that really just gives it that little extra spice that you bring in CM Punk for the Chicago show. You bring in Randy Orton for the St. Louis show. It's funny, too, because apparently AEW Dynamite's going to be on Tuesday, the week Randy Orton is on NXT in St. Louis. So they're going to be going head to head. And I would like to see how that goes because, like you said, we got the 2.0 because Vince was pissed at Triple H, and it was because AEW was beating NXT in ratings every single week. And Vince got pissed off, and we ended up getting the very bad acid trip version of NXT. That the bright spot about it was we got ourselves Braun Breaker, we got Carmelo Hayes, we got Tony D'Angelo. Subsequently, we got Trick Williams, Grayson Waller. Ugh. I mean, we got a bunch of like really good young talent from that, but that's all we really got from that. So I'm excited for them. I agree with you. I think they need to keep it to like the smaller arenas, like the old Hammerstein ballroom type size of an arena where you can get like 6,000-7,000, where they used at the Manhattan Center.
Right.
Those are the places you got to concentrate on if you're NXT because you need to help build your brand. Don't go to these 20-seat arenas and expect not even a half a crowd to show up like they do on Wednesday nights and then get made fun of when there's nobody sitting behind the hard camera. Just say.
You did mention one person I do want to discuss, the Undertaker. The Undertaker, in an interview, kind of sort of left the door open just a smidge of having one more match. He keeps saying, like, hey, every time I'm there, I feel like I need to get ready and I need to be out there and contributing. It's been over 4 years since the Boneyard match. Maybe his body's healed up enough to do one more match. I have one person that I would propose would be the perfect opponent for him to have one more match.
The Great Khali.
No, and it's not El Gigante either.
Well, he's dead, so he's unfortunately unavailable for said match.
Well, I mean, Saudi Prince might not take that as an answer.
I know. He didn't take the Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior being dead for the 50-man Royal Rumble, so clearly he would think that El Gigante is available as Giant Gonzalez against The Undertaker, where they'll just have like George Murison dress up as Giant Gonzalez.
Right. Cousin Bobby, who would you want to see the Deadman? And he says that the Deadman character is dead. And he will only come back as El Jefe's favorite version of The Undertaker.
American.
Who would you want to see him fight?
If I got to see The Undertaker wrestle one more match? How did I know this question was going to be asked to me, and yet I still have no idea? I'm curious to see who you have, to give me a minute to ponder my decision. Who is it that who does Cousin Jay have?
I have exactly one person that would be the perfect opponent that would take care of him and bring him to not only a good match, but a great match. And that is the World Heavyweight Champion, Gunther.
Oh, yes. I need to see that in my lifetime. I would be 100% on board with a Gunther versus Undertaker match. You have no idea. Especially after The Undertaker did an interview. I think it was with Chris Van Vliet or one of the other wrestling shows that's out there. He did an interview and they asked him about taking chops. And he said, I never liked taking chops. He goes, the only person I ever allowed to chop me in a wrestling match was Ric Flair. However, if I ever got the chance to step in the ring with Gunther, you better believe I would let Gunther chop me. That's all I needed to hear. So I'm not going to come up with a better person than that. Other than, for me, nostalgia reasons, I'd like to see Randy Orton just because he's the legend killer and The Undertaker is, the legend of all legends. So it's the rule of Randy Orton where he fits into every equation ever in professional wrestling because he's been wrestling for 20 some odd years. And
the thing for me with Gunther specifically, Gunther does not have a style where he goes a million miles an hour, where the Undertaker has to try to keep up. Gunther is deliberate and just beats the holy hell out of people, and he takes it as good as he gives it. And I think that style would actually fit a slowed down, but still knows how to do the ring psychology Undertaker.
That match would slap, as the kids of this generation would say. It would feed families.
Mike Rainey is saying Undertaker needs to stay retired. I mean, his last couple of years, some of those matches, I mean, not just the Goldberg match, there were other matches that were tough to watch. The Roman Reigns match was tough to watch.
Jay, I'm going to tell you this much, and especially after what I saw on Saturday, it pains me to say this. When The Undertaker came out at WrestleMania and he was the one that confronted the final boss, and again, I'm never, ever going to be upset when I hear that gong go off, ever. And he came in there and he delivered one of the worst choke slams I've ever seen The Undertaker to deliver to somebody who wasn't Vince or Linda McMahon. It was awful. You could tell he's not the same that he was. And granted, it takes two to tango. And obviously, if The Rock had done a better job.
He was told, that afternoon that it was happening.
Yeah, so he didn't get a chance to fully train. And it was one of the worst choke slams I've ever seen, especially after seeing the Jelly Roll, of all people, deliver one of the best choke slams I have ever seen anybody deliver to anybody. And to this day, and nothing against The Undertaker, Kane always had a better choke slam. I always loved Kane's choke slam because he looked like he was Rob Gronkowski scoring a touchdown, and he would spike his opponents into the ground. That's what we're talking about. Jelly Roll was Kane caliber choke slamming Austin Theory, and it was beautiful. I went back and watched it 7 times because it was that
Only
good.
7.
Well, I mean, the show was going on, so I didn't want to, I was like, I got enough of a commercial break. I could zip through this shit. It was beautiful. I honest to goodness, Jay, it was crisp. It was clean. He dropped him perfectly. He lifted him up perfect. The technique was just unbelievable. Jelly Roll now is more deserving of being a celebrity in the WWE Hall of Fame more so than Drew Carey. And that's official.
Okay.
Especially because he got R-Truth to eat jelly rolls on Monday Night Raw, so definitely double. Did more in his 2 appearances than Drew Carey did.
I was glad to see R-Truth did at least post on X that he brought the ice.
I was so happy because I was like, I swear, if he doesn't bring the ice, I'm going to be so sad. And he posted the picture, and I was like, yeah. And the Miz had hors d'oeuvres. I enjoyed that. I really thought that the Miz was going to turn on R-Truth, but I really enjoyed it because R-Truth, without a doubt, is an absolute treasure. An absolute treasure. I don't think there's anybody more entertaining I don't even think in the history of professional wrestling than R-Truth. That man is an absolute joy. I am happy every time he is on the TV. I can't even say that about a lot of people. It's just R-Truth and maybe, CM Punk and a couple others, but that's it. I know that when Ron Killings is on my television, that I am going to be thoroughly entertained. Whether he grabs a ladder and tries to climb it in the middle of the Royal Rumble, or if he goes for the hot tag in the middle of a tag team ladder match, or unofficially entering into the Royal Rumble. Every time, pitting people on an airplane to win championships, pitting people on golf courses to win championships. The man is a goat.
Taking his picture with Post Malone and having a musical collaboration.
I swear, I don't even want to follow anybody else on Twitter. I just want to follow R-Truth because it's awesome. He's worth going on Twitter every single day because it wasn't just the Post Malone thing. He did the same thing with Logan Paul, calling him Jake Paul and I'm gonna collab with Jake Paul, and I'm like, oh boy, probably not the last. That's probably the last person you want to be associated with right now is either of the Paul brothers, especially after what happened on Saturday. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are a couple of things to go along with that. Let me talk to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Logan Paul jokingly said, I'm going to file a lawsuit against LA Knight for damaging the Prime truck. By the way, Logan Paul is getting sued. Prime is getting sued for $66.7 million, allegedly for breach of contract, because they have a deal with some distributor that they're supposed to send out a certain amount of Prime drinks each year, and if they don't meet that goal, they're in breach of contract. Apparently, in year one, they have not gotten to that number. The distributor said, hey, if they get to it by the end of the third year, no big deal. But like clearly, they're not feeling that great about it if they're not even finished with the deal and already suing him. I mean, it just blows my mind. Like, they pay all that money to have the sponsorship, to have their name in the middle of the ring. They put his stuff all over WWE TV. Bad look.
For
the
record, the only time I've ever seen anybody consume a Prime energy drink were the wrestlers on the TV show. I have never seen anybody walk into a 7-Eleven, a Wawa, any grocery store, any kind of place that sells beverages in containers that you can pull from a cooler. I have never, ever seen anybody drink Prime. I've seen the Prime. It's always fully stocked at every store I've ever gone into. I have never in my entire life wanted to buy a bottle of Prime and drink it. But that's mainly because of the fact that I know that Logan Paul is a no good, dirty, lying, scumbag piece of shit fuckhead. And I don't associate myself with Logan Paul. Again, a tremendous in-ring performer. I'm not taking that away from him at all. I never will. Because the guy goes out there and he put in the time and effort to master the craft of professional wrestling. So I applaud him for that. He's still a piece of shit.
Yes.
And honestly, him getting sued for $60-something million could not have happened to a better person. Yes. Nobody drinks that garbage
and
water.
And the company that's suing him is called Refresco. Yeah.
There you go. Since we are on SummerSlam, let's get into SummerSlam then.
All right.
All right, let's see. Let's get the match card from last week. I was on the right page and I went back and I'm an idiot. Let's see. Which match would you like to start? Let's start with what did they start with anyway? Let's start with the Intercontinental title match. Let's start with Braun Breaker versus Sami Zayn. The match that seemed like everybody was very upset about because it fell kind of flat.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a big moment at the end.
I think,
although I did see the Steiner brothers were in attendance and reacted. Quite honestly, the biggest thing of the shot that I saw of Rick and Scott Steiner in the arena as Braun was winning the title was the fact that DDP was in the same luxury box. He and Scott Steiner literally beat the crap out of each other. Actually, I think it was Scott Steiner beat the crap out of DDP. But, like, it does my heart well to see that they're cool with each other now, like 27 years after the incident.
I mean, to be fair,
I think Scott Steiner said or did something to DDP's wife. And DDP was like, I don't care if he's bigger than me. I gotta make him know that that's not cool. But
fair enough. I did not know that DDP got his ass kicked by Scott Steiner.
Yes.
I figured he just corrected him in a math problem, and that's why he got his ass kicked. Because, honest to goodness, like, how could you go after DDP after all the good will he has done, all the great stuff he's done to help people with his DDP yoga? You got to make amends with that dude. And honestly, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame a second time. You should go in as DDP, but also go in for DDP yoga, just because of the fact that he helped Scott Hall when Scott Hall was still around. He helped Mick Foley, helped Chris Jericho, all these people that he helped with DDP yoga. You should go in a second time. Help Sheamus, yes. But I love that moment. I love the fact that the Steiners were there. I really felt like the ending was just kind of flat. But I am happy that Braun Breaker did win the Intercontinental Championship. Nothing against Sami Zayn. He's a terrific Intercontinental Champion. He's won the championship a bunch of times. This was his chance. This was his opportunity, and I'm glad that Braun's going to get it. He's going to be carrying that championship into the next era of Raw when they move to Netflix.
Both of us predicted the last time that Braun went against Sami that Braun was going to win this match. They pulled the fast one on us, but I'm glad that they pulled the trigger this time, in front of a bigger audience. Yeah, it was not the greatest match that I've ever seen. I mean, I know both of us were pulling it, for it to be like a 90-second match.
I wanted the squash, yes.
But, another competitive match, just, not to the level of what either performer can do.
See,
like you said, it fell flat. It ebbed and flowed a little bit, but it just didn't reach any peak. And, they've done their best to try to make it like into a storyline, into something that was meaningful. Braun is part of the future, you're building it now. Clearly, a lot of what we saw on Saturday was building for the future and basically a changing of the guard. We had a lot of championships change. I know one of them we knew it was going to happen, but just very sad.
Say anything. If we could skip that match, or I could just throw my headphones across the room when we talk about the women's championship match from. I only threw up 3 times after she won. I only threw up 3 times. It was awful. It was the worst thing ever. Let's just get into it. Let's just get it over with. Really quickly, Nia Jax won the WWE Women's Championship. I puked the end. There you go. I have nothing more to say. Bayley just won the title at WrestleMania. She deserved to have a long-standing title reign. I don't understand why Nia Jax won that match. Her bonsai drops are awful. She looks like how I used to deliver my bonsai drop if I ever hit one of my younger brothers with one. Like, just to sell the point that I actually did the move, but not hit them nearly as hard, because knowing that if I hurt one of my brothers, I would get my ass kicked by my father, the OG of the family. Yeah, he would have not been happy if I bonsai dropped one of my brothers and hurt them. So that's exactly how Nia Jax now delivers her bonsai drops.
Yes.
She's not any good in the ring. She's not any good on the microphone. She's awful. She doesn't even belong there. If I can get rid of any one person in WWE, it's the WWE Women's Champion. And I cannot believe this, that we're having this conversation 8 years later, talking about this woman and how she's awful and how she doesn't deserve to be the Women's Champion. It was a horrible booking decision. I have no idea what the fuck they're doing, because I don't even think they know what they're doing. They had a great thing. Bayley deserved to be the champion. She deserved it. She deserved to have that moment at WrestleMania. She deserved to be the champion for a lot longer than 4 months. Same thing with Sami Zayn, but I understand it, because at least with Sami Zayn, he put over a younger talent that's part of the future.
Right.
Bayley put over the worst women's wrestler in the history of women's professional wrestling. There's a difference here.
There might be a couple of worse ones.
Bertha Faye?
Sharmell?
How are you going to disrespect Queen Charmel? Charmel is a Hall of Famer, sir.
She is.
She's a more well-deserved.
She is not a Hall of Fame in-ring performer, though. She is a Hall of Fame character.
All hail King Booker.
Yes. And I was hoping that we might get Tiffy time after all that happened.
I was praying for it. I did not want to see Nia Jax walk out with the women's championship. There was anything else could have happened on Saturday. Even Logan Paul winning the U.S. championship, I would not have been upset. All I wanted was anybody but Nia Jax walking out with the WWE Women's Championship. And lo and behold, look who won the pony. It wasn't me.
Tim in the chat is saying he believes Dana Brooke is a worse wrestler.
Ash by Elegance or whatever the hell her name is.
Yeah.
I still think my favorite was after she went to TNA and they started doing the TNA and NXT crossover, and she came out during NXT when Jordynne Grace was wrestling, and the crowd went mild. She got no reaction. I'm like, boy, they must know that Ash by Elegance is Dana Brooke.
And I'm still angling, still maneuvering. When are we going to get Ava Marie and Nia Jax? I know Ava Marie is not in WWE at the moment.
Thank God.
And we got this close to that match happening. The two worst women wrestlers possibly ever.
We got to add Bertha Faye to that equation. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I remember her because it was at that time where Alundra Blaze was basically wrestling Bull Nakano and any other woman they could bring in. And they brought in some grotesque woman named Bertha Faye to win the WWF Women's Championship. It was awful. There was a lot of points in WWE over the years that I wish I had not witnessed. There's not even a top 10 list because I don't even think that top 10 list would be suffice. I would have to do like 100. But Bertha Faye being a part of that was just awful. Nia Jax is just awful. And I'll say this, hot take. Eva Marie is a better wrestler than Nia Jax.
Mike Rainey agrees with you, saying just slightly better.
Hey, it doesn't matter. As long as you're better, whether you are slightly better or light years ahead of everybody. It isn't like when Logan Paul is literally better than 90% of the wrestlers in AEW, where it's that big of a gap between him and the next closest guy to him in AEW. We're talking about like slim pickings. We're talking about a nose at the wire at the Kentucky Derby close. That's what we're talking about. That's how much close it is between Nia Jax and Eva Marie. They're both awful. And I don't want to see either of them face each other in a wrestling ring ever. I know you want to see it, and because you want to see it and I don't, means that it's going to happen.
I want to see it, and I want to add it to our worst card of all time. I won't even call it a premium live event. I think we should. I might just find YouTube videos, string together the worst wrestling matches I've ever seen.
Nails and El Gigante.
And just really enjoy it for what it is. Maybe, I mean, for you, maybe some herbal supplements. Maybe I'll sit there and have a scotch on the rocks.
What?
Just sip it down while I'm enjoying El Gigante versus Nails.
That has to be on there.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
I'd have to really think about like other matches. There's got to be like a Duke Drosy match out there that nobody wants to watch.
I mean, his run-in, like what was it, a year and a half ago? I mean, that could be
at that Battle Royal.
Yeah, it was great.
Can we include the Repo Man's performance in the WrestleMania 17 gimmick Battle Royal where he was tossed less than 2 seconds after the bell rang?
I wasn't ready. Oh, so good.
And we're going to have to put that Charmel match from TNA on that list of god-awful matches. And I hate to say it because I was just trying to defend Charmel, but that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. The dog kennel from Hell match is going to be on there too.
Yes.
And I am hell bent. We're picking one match from Clash 13.
I mean, you could pick half the card, to be fair. I mean, primetime Brian Lee and the
Hey,
Z-Man.
listen,
I mean,
I'm disqualifying that from being possibly on the worst card collection of worst matches. I am not, because that match is an absolute treasure. I don't care. Watching primetime Brian Lee stand in the corner as the Z-Man attempts a cross body from the other corner and nobody's there. It's like our president's brain. The lights were on, but nobody was home to catch primetime or the Z-Man.
the Z-Man. Tim, you know, that is a good Rosa Mendez.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the Russian one's name? Oksana?
Oh, Oksana was not very good either.
She was awful. There was a point in time, but then again, there was a point in time when WWE had no women's wrestlers.
Where almost every women's wrestler was terrible. I mean, part of it is they didn't get enough time to perform in the ring, and some of them were there to be Barbies.
Like Kelly. Amazing. Candice Michelle. Although Candice Michelle turned out to be a halfway decent in-ring performer, considering the fact that she shot porn before she got into wrestling, just like Mickie James. Not that I would know or anything.
Zero.
But Mickie James is a goat, so she gets away with it. She's in my Rushmore. I don't care what anybody says.
Yes. One other person of interest that is a woman that was at SummerSlam, Stephanie McMahon. And when Triple H was asked in the post-show press conference if she has any official capacity with the company, and he said, no, right now she's just he said, and I quote, once again enjoys being around wrestling.
She'll have a job by 2025.
Once again enjoys being around wrestling.
She will be employed by WWE once again by 2025. I'm calling it.
Okay.
Because she's been making too many appearances. Yes, I know that she was at the Hall of Fame for WrestleMania, and that's WrestleMania and everything. But they showcased her on SummerSlam. They even showed the thing on the WWE's Instagram page of her and CM Punk having an emotional moment after Punk's match. And like they hugged it out and all that stuff. Man, this is the CM Punk that I've been happy to see, by the way.
So far, so good.
So far, so good, and I'll take what we're getting. But I was very happy to see Stephanie McMahon at SummerSlam. It was good to see her. Always happy. She's still my favorite of all the McMahons. Shane was my favorite, and then, you know, he tried to book himself in a Royal Rumble that he had no right booking himself in, and then he tore his quad in the ring.
And got beat by Snoop Dogg took over.
Speaking of which, Snoop Dogg is now the greatest American to ever live. I don't care what anybody says. That man
greater than R-Truth.
Snoop Dogg. Nobody has obtained more side quests in this game of life more than Snoop Dogg. Working the Olympics, working with Martha Stewart. He's on ESPN. He's literally everywhere. He's at WrestleMania.
He's a WWE Hall of Famer.
He wrestled on AEW. He's done literally everything. One of the members, I think it was Death Row, if I'm not mistaken, one of the members of Death Row's music label, the gangster rapper Snoop Dogg, is now the mascot for the United States in the Olympics. My favorite was somebody had posted on Twitter. They were like, I was watching the Olympics with my mother, and my mother had made a comment about how Snoop Dogg was there. And it's like, isn't it great to see Snoop Dogg representing the U.S. and helping out all the Olympians? And the person was like, hey, Mom, remember in the 90s when you grounded me for buying his CD? That's where we've come from. Snoop Dogg went from gin and juice, rolling down the street, smoking Enzo, sipping on gin and juice, laid back, to now being the mascot for the United States women's fencing team. I love it, though. I love it because it's Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
But
he's a goat.
He is a goat. But to bring it back to, SummerSlam, let's talk about the other women's championship. Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan. I think everybody and their brother knew some kind of chicanery was going to occur in this match. Was Dom Mysterio going to be the one that cost Rhea the match? Was it going to be Finn Balor? We find that out about Finn a little bit later on, but it did seem like Dom was going to side with Rhea until he didn't, and he cost her the match. And Liv Morgan and Dom Mysterio are now a thing. To the point where Dom was so evil. Dom now is the greatest heel of all time because he is the first person in the history of professional wrestling who had already been a heel to turn even more heel.
Yes.
Tell me he's a bigger heel than him right now in WWE.
This match, all in all, was pretty solid. But when it comes to storytelling and getting people invested, this one had it in spades. Because
it's so beautifully
people
done.
were so loud for when that happened at the end. Like, it was beautiful. Dom Mysterio went from, what was it, 4 years ago at SummerSlam, he debuted against Seth Rollins, had a solid match, and like going, okay, yeah, hey, he could go, and then he just kind of meandered around for a year and a half, 2 years, more or less trying to be a clone of his dad, but he's taller than his dad, and he has a different personality, and he can't do the moves his dad does. They don't look natural for him. But once he got spooky
pals,
it all fell into line, and Dom is literally just killing it on the main roster, and it makes it silly to think back that a few years ago, like, people were like, who's going to be a bigger deal, Hook or Dom? It's like, who's Hook?
Jinder Mahal. Who the fuck is Hook?
I mean, they are just making Dom, like...
Dom went from being absolutely unwatchable every single time he was on the television because you really just thought that he was there as a Make-A-Wish for a year and a half because he was awful. Like you said, he should not have been trying to be like his dad. He should have been more like his real dad.
Yes.
Eddie Guerrero. And I think once he developed, because the one thing I'll say, yes, he's not awful in the ring by any means. He's gotten better in the ring over the years. He was still a bit green after his match with Seth. But man, his character work is so impressive. I don't even care. I've never seen anybody develop a character as well and as strong as Dom has in this character. He's Dirty Dom. It's incredible. We went from 2.5 years ago saying, I don't want to see this fucking kid on my TV. Hell, I think he won a Marquee Award for my worst wrestler of the year.
Yeah.
Now, if he wins a championship, like a major championship in WWE, I'd be on board with it. He has earned that right. He has done such great heel work. It is incredible how well he is just accepted and just kind of developed into this heel, considering the fact his dad never really was a heel. His dad's in the Ricky Steamboat type of categories where he's always a face. You can't boo Rey Mysterio except it's the 2014 Royal Rumble and he's coming out 30 and it's not Daniel Bryanson.
Right.
But I've enjoyed Dom. I love the fact that he got the reaction he did. He got the kiss after the match. Liv walked out with the championship, and now everybody's like, all right, what are they going to do with this now? What does this mean for the spooky pals?
One caveat I'm going to throw into this. SummerSlam weekend, I think there was a kid with special needs, and they were trying to get a picture with Dom Mysterio. And I think there was like a cashier you had to go to, and I think the line was like closed or closing. And Dom welcomed, the family and talked. And like the handler was trying to tell Dom, no, she hasn't paid, blah, 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 blah. Dom's like, she's going to go pay the cashier. It's going to be okay. Let this happen. And ended up talking with the kid for like 10 minutes, getting the picture, not keeping it kayfabe, but doing the things to get over on a personal level and get even more over on a heel level.
Yeah.
And clearly with what happened at the end of that match and what we ended up seeing later on in the evening, things made more sense.
Right.
And because of that, I'm going to go to what was my favorite match of the evening.
Which was also my favorite match of the evening.
Damian Priest and Gunther, two big beefy dudes that beat the shit out of each other. I enjoyed the heck out of this match. I've got one thing I like about, but I love the fact that at the beginning, when Gunther put in a whole bunch of offense, the Priest kicked out at 1. I enjoy seeing the kick out at 1 because, hey, you're supposed to slowly beat the crap out of the person to where they will finally get pinned 1, 2, 3. I know in commentary they have attempted to try to say, oh, yep, they're just trying to take a rest, give themselves an extra second breath. It's like going, no, get your shoulders off the damn mat and beat the crap out of the person. I enjoy seeing stuff like that. Priest ripping Gunther's chest open like Hulk Hogan had his, like, from Andre the Giant before WrestleMania 3, not even realizing he was bleeding until he saw it on, like, the Jumbotron. Yep. And then started smearing it all over the place. And then they went back to beating the shit out of each other. I loved this match.
It was my favorite match at SummerSlam, and it's not even close. And it's only because I was slightly underwhelmed by one match in particular I thought was going to steal the show. But Gunther and Damian Priest, that was one hell of a battle. Finn Balor did come out at one point in there. He was trying to, like, support Damian Priest and everything like that. But there was a point in the match where Priest, I believe, hit his finishing move on Gunther, and he was right by the ropes.
He hit the razor's edge. Then he hit the
I forget what the hell.
South of Heaven.
South of Heaven, that's it.
His choke slam. This was my one critique of this match is when Priest went to cover Gunther to make sure he was close enough to the ropes. He, like, rolled them over like an extra time to put him right next to the ropes. And it's like, that was the one flaw in the match. Everything else I thought was, like, pitch perfect. It was great.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was kind of irked by that too, because everything up to that point was perfect. It was a great match between the two of them. And I know people were skeptical at first when they said it was going to be Gunther versus Damian Priest. But the fact that the match delivered more than any other match in the card is great because, A, it proves that Gunther is your biggest heel. He's your big monster guy. He's your guy you're going to build around. You give him the rock, he's going to run it into the end zone multiple times. That's your guy. I've been saying this for a while. They got their top heel for the next decade when they brought him up to the main roster. And I still feel that way. And he's world heavyweight champion, and he deserves it. Damian Priest has developed himself into a guy that can be considered a main event caliber guy. He's going to be more like that hybrid upper mid-card, but can flirt with the main event picture. He proved it to me. Damian Priest has just been absolutely incredible. I've enjoyed this run. I actually enjoyed his title reign. And if he won the championship or a championship like that down the line, I wouldn't be opposed to it because he really showed out, and that was a great match. I wasn't overly thrilled about the fact that Finn Balor went and he grabbed Gunther's leg, and I'm like, oh, here we go. This is where it ends up. And then it ended up costing Priest the match because he was distracted. And now the one match I did not go with my heart or gut, and I went with my brain that I don't even have, is the reason why I did not have my first perfect WWE premium live event / pay-per-view card in years. But it's fun. It's fun. I really thought that I did not think there were gonna be that many title changes. And I was trying to be devil's advocate, but I really knew, like, I was going, it's gonna be Gunther, and then at the I'm gonna go with Priest. But again, great match.
Yeah.
All right, let's. We did the women's matches. We did the World Heavyweight, the Intercontinental Championship. Oh, let's talk about the United States Championship match between the Maverick and the Megastar.
Yeah. L.A. Knight. Yeah.
Yeah. Another fun match.
It was.
Say what you will. That was grossly an underrated match, and I enjoyed every second of it. They worked. I mean, Logan Paul, again, as much as I hate that dude, as much of a scumbag piece of shit he is, the dude is an incredible talent. I love the brain buster that everybody thought was going to be the other. I forget what everybody thought it was going to be. They turned it into a brain buster.
They thought it was going to be a superplex.
Yeah,
and like
he hit the brain buster instead.
Damn. That looked like a rough landing.
That looked like a rough landing, but man, that looks so good. I really enjoyed it. Machine Gun Kelly did not need to get involved in that match. They had to bring out the brass knucks. Ugh. Honest to goodness, as happy as I am that Logan Paul has finally dropped the United States Championship. Nothing makes me happier knowing that Max Dupree, Eli Drake, every other shitty gimmick that Shawn Ricker has ever had in his entire career up until this point, the man bet on himself. It took him 20 years to get to this point. And now Eli Drake, Shawn Ricker, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him, is the United States champion of WWE. My favorite was earlier today, he posted on Instagram a picture of him on a boat with the U.S. championship with a bunch of people from like the Revolutionary War. And I was like, by God, he actually found the one boat with all these people on it that actually had Bobby Fish. So it was incredible that they actually had a boat with, the people from the Revolutionary War, and they had two WWE, or one current and one former WWE superstar.
Yeah.
The impenetrable Bobby Fish.
The man who defeated Abraham Lincoln in a wrestling match.
The only man to ever defeat Abraham Lincoln in a wrestling match, Bobby Fish. Where's the lie?
Tough MFer. I enjoyed the heck out of this match. Again, the crowd was super into it. It was a fun match. This was not what Priest and Gunther was, and it shouldn't have been. For both their characters, this was pitch perfect. I loved the thing with the Prime vehicle that LA Knight did. It was beautiful.
I wish he had destroyed it a little bit more, if I'm being completely honest. I would have liked to have seen him just absolutely, like Kofi Kingston destroying the Randy Orton NASCAR car, 10, 15 years ago. That's the kind of assault I wanted to see on that vehicle. And I was like, oh my God, please don't just get the windshield. I'm like, I'm calling, get the windshield, hit the taillights, go. No, he just knocked out the window. I'm like, okay, I'll take what I can get. But those two matches were by far the two best matches on the card. And like you said, Priest and Gunther was more of a slugfest. LA Knight and Logan Paul was more of a high spot fest.
Sure.
I enjoyed it. Those were the two matches I enjoyed the most at SummerSlam. And that's only because I was I was slightly disappointed in one match in its own right, but that's neither here nor there.
All right. Isaac Delgado says, looks like Wi-Fi is not working live stream today. Today is Friday afternoon. Well, Isaac, I hope it ends up working out for you. We'll check see if the YouTube stream is not clean, but we'll take a look at it, and definitely check us out. Fridays, 6:30. Give us a subscribe to us. I just want to quickly pivot, because you didn't bring up Machine Gun Kelly. Takes me to one of my favorite things that happened this week. MJF on X. He referred to his upcoming opponent, Kyle Fletcher. He said in this, "Thank me later. Kyle Fletcher looks like Machine Gun Kelly and Ellen DeGeneres had a dumpster baby." Then somebody replied to him and said, "Vinnie Mac would never allow a top guy to say that." To which MJF responded,
Of course he did.
"You're right. He'd ask me to F his secretary while he shits on her head. Get lost, bot." The "get lost, bot" line was my favorite.
I have so many things I want to mention about all of that, but I'm not going to do it because I'm going to try to stay the course without speaking too negatively about AEW. And I actually think I've done very well making it over an hour without really going on and lambasting AEW. So I'm going to Barry Horowitz myself right now and pat myself on the back.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it just goes to show, like, you can't do anything without saying WWE or mentioning WWE, anybody in AEW. It's always about that. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit, too, once we get through with SummerSlam, because I do want to mention some other things. And there's definitely a very, very special part of the podcast that I have reserved for a certain member of the AEW family.
Interestingly enough, in the chat, it's saying BBC is sorry to learn of the death of AEW co-founder Tony Khan. I don't think that's real. Can somebody else check that from BBC News? It doesn't sound real to me. So that would be interesting, seeing they're supposed to be here on Wednesday.
Oh man, if that is true, I'm gonna have to change a few things on my list.
Yeah.
I don't think I could give a dead person my Brainless. Again.
So anyway, circling back to SummerSlam, you mentioned Machine Gun Kelly. I wanted to talk about the MJF tweet on X, which I was like, when I read it, I was just like, he is the salt of the earth. He's a treasure. Not like our truth, but he's a treasure.
The All-American Champion for AEW, or whatever the hell the title is called. What?
Yeah, he changed his name as much as Ludwig has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But circling back to SummerSlam, let's talk about the one really disappointing match. And I'm not talking about Nia Jax, because I already knew that abomination was going to happen. That's why I picked her to win.
Yeah.
CM Punk. Wow, Sheba must not be a fan of CM Punk.
Sheba didn't like it either.
I'm sorry. She must be a Drew. Okay, let's try this one. Versus Drew McIntyre. Okay, she likes Drew McIntyre. Okay. With special guest referee Seth Franklin Rollins. I need to know this especially. What was your reaction to the Seth Rollins referee attire from SummerSlam.
His puff sleeves on Monday night were better. It was good. It was good.
My favorite part was when Seth took his time to count the pin that when Punk had Drew down to the point where it pissed off Punk because he was like, "You're not a viable referee. I'm a better referee than you. Everybody's a better referee." And he was tearing into him. And there was one part where he was definitely cussing because I could definitely read his lips saying the F word more than once. And he was going off on Seth. But the one thing that I picked up on before the match started up again was he goes, "You with your stupid shirt and your stupid Sabu pants." I lost it. When he said Sabu pants, I was like, oh my God, he went there. But I just, Seth is another one that I'm like, I just appreciate Seth for what he does because any human being that can go out dressed like he does, power to you, man. You get it over. But anyway, the match, I am not an overly, I'll admit it right now, I am not an overly big fan of special guest referee type matches where a wrestler is the special guest referee. When The Rock did it, when it was the British Bulldog versus, I think it was Triple H, if I'm not mistaken, and he was doing the thing where he had the microphone. Yeah, that's one thing. Roddy Piper ruined Bob Backlund versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 11. I am sorry. I have never been an overly huge fan of wrestlers being referees in matches because it just takes away from the two competitors in the ring. It was a solid match. I thought it could have been better.
It made sense when Jesse the Body Ventura had to be the special guest referee for the main event of the first SummerSlam. There was only one person that could ref that match. Jesse Ventura, who always complained that there should be a second referee for tag team matches.
And I'm sure there's been other times where the referee, like when Austin came out and refereed the Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole match. That made sense.
Mike Tyson.
Well, Tyson was more of an enforcer than he was a referee.
Although
for
he
that
did
match.
count the final three.
He did count the final three, and he did knock out Shawn Michaels at the end of the match. But okay, so there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, I'm not an overly huge fan of special guest referees in matches. It's one of the few things I do nitpick about when it comes to professional wrestling.
Yeah.
But I again, the match, it continued to tell the story. I just thought it was a little weak that they played the whole bracelet thing into the equation. You know, Punk taking it off of Drew's wrist, Seth putting it on his wrist, Punk just being so incensed with that bracelet that it cost him the match. This was after Drew was distracted by CM Punk being at ringside calling commentary for his match at WrestleMania. And Drew just walked back after winning the title. No, you had to go and poke the bear, and the bear pulled the rug from beneath you, and you ended up losing the title to Damian Priest. And it was just the same thing. Punk let the bracelet distract him. Drew hit him with a low blow, clayboard him, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and took the bracelet with him. The bracelet is a bigger deal than anything else in this match right now, and in that rivalry now, and it's killing me. Although, rumor has it that this is going to lead to Punk and Drew main eventing Bad Blood.
They should. They have built up this feud since the first night that CM Punk came back.
Yeah.
We weren't sure whether they were going with Seth or Drew for it, and they ended up choosing Drew. I'm sure we're going to eventually get the Rollins versus Punk match. Rollins is busy with other folks at this point.
I think he was after what I witnessed on Monday. We're not going to be seeing Seth Rollins for a while. I we'll get into that in a bit. I loved every second of that. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But again, not really surprised Drew won the match. I did pick Punk because I can't not pick Punk, but Drew won the match. It's going to carry this story on because Punk said that once SummerSlam's over, him and Drew are done. And then here we are on Monday Night Raw. Him and Seth are about to come to fisticuffs. I'll be your Huckleberry, as he said. And Drew came out, interrupted. Punk chased Drew out of the building. He was chasing him with a chair. They're gonna keep this going. This rivalry is going to go an entire year.
As long as you still tell a compelling story, I'm fine with it. As much as the SummerSlam match was not all it could have been, I think this is going to be what was the rivalry?
Nakamura versus Styles.
Yeah, we're like the matches after the initial one got better and better.
Yes,
I think it's going to be that. I mean, CM Punk, think about it. The dude has been injured quite a bit since he returned between AEW and WWE after taking more or less 8 years off from being a pro wrestler. It takes time to get your timing. It takes time to knock the rust off.
He looked good. That was the one takeaway that I took away from that match was that CM Punk, considering the fact that he has been out of action since the Royal Rumble, he's in his mid-40s at this point. Like you said, he's been out of wrestling. Yes, he had that run in AEW, but he had the broken ankle when he had that freak accident when he was jumping into the crowd after he celebrated winning the title. He had torn his other pec.
Tricep.
When he was tricep. I'm sorry, he tore his other tricep, and then he tears it again. That's usually what happens when you injure one. The other one ends up being more vulnerable because you're kind of overusing the good one now. But he looked good. He looked good. He didn't look washed. He didn't look burnt out. He looked better in that match than he did in the Royal Rumble. And that's the one thing I will take away from this. Yes, it was a little bit of a lackluster of a match, but at least CM Punk did not look like a shell of himself like every time Chris Jericho's on my television.
Right.
Which is never anymore. The learning tree. Ugh.
Yeah, Chris, that's what Brainless One was saying, that they're going to have a Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood in October.
Well, I don't know if
we're only 2 months away. Chris Brown was saying, it might be at Bash at Berlin. It would make more sense for it to be at Bad Blood because Bad Blood was where the first Hell in a Cell match happened. CM Punk is a huge fan of history and would probably want to make his own mark.
And honestly, I didn't even say the Hell in a Cell, but I love the idea of a Hell in a Cell match for those two. And if they wanted to do something at Bash of the Berlin, and then it leads to them having their rubber match at Bad Blood. I know that a lot of people don't like the 50-50 booking type of thing. I know you're not an overly huge fan of it. But
I don't mind if they have 3 matches.
Okay.
And it's not 50-50 if somebody wins 2 out of 3.
You just don't like it if there's 2 matches and one wins
I'm fine
one.
with having 3 matches. Yeah. Okay. If it's back and forth and nobody clearly gets an advantage, you're not helping anybody. But if eventually somebody ends up winning more matches, it's fine. And then you get the rare case where Seth Franklin Rollins lost 3 matches to Cody Rhodes and somehow became a bigger star.
It happens. But Cody, I'll tell you right now, Cody and Seth, they delivered in every single one of those matches. There was not a bummer between the two of them in any of those matches when Cody returned a couple of years ago. But again, it's Seth Rollins. You can't take away the dude's in-ring ability. Yes, he's had a few, injuries over the years, and he's injured a couple of people's with the buckle bomb and everything. But man, he is so good in the ring, and he's so fun to watch. I enjoyed him and Cody in all 3 of their matches that they had. They were just fantastic. And that was even with the whole Even if you take out the whole like Cody returning and like that whole big pomp and circumstance, the match was awesome. They killed it. 3 straight pay-per-views. And it's not something I don't expect from Seth Rollins because he has established himself as one of the best in-ring performers in professional wrestling. But I could see them doing something at Bash of the Berlin. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do more of like a European type of like. Obviously, Gunther's going to main event with the World Heavyweight Championship against Randy Orton at Bash of Berlin. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ludwig Kaiser go one-on-one with Sheamus. I could just see stuff like that. I could see, Dragunov getting an Intercontinental title shot against Braun Breaker because even during this whole thing with Braun Breaker, one of the people he's been antagonizing during this whole thing since he moved to Raw was Ilya Dragunov. I mean, he broke Ricochet in half, and then he beat Sami Zayn. So, yeah, him and Dragunov, they could really have a nice card for Bash of the Berlin and not even need to use Drew or Punk for that. But what do I know? I don't book for WWE.
Well, that brings us to the final match of the card.
Adrenaline in my soul, ready to talk about Cody Rhodes. Do it all to keep them on their feet. The crowd is here, about to blow, waiting for me to start the show. I forgot that next. I screwed it up. I'm sorry.
I mean, you generally just shouldn't sing.
Yes, I understand. I've heard myself in karaoke. It's just absolutely awful.
You could rap on the show. You could rap on the show, singing.
It's like listening to Cornette sing on The Experience.
Yeah.
Like Mussolini with extra cheese. But yes, Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa for the WWE Undisputed Championship in a Bloodlines rules match. So everybody knew. And I was wrong, and I even posted the poll on there. I thought we were going to get a whole mess of Samoans.
We got some.
We didn't get enough.
But
it was, I thought that was Solo's best performance. I don't care what anybody says. Solo actually looked like a guy who could consider himself the tribal chief. A guy who has a lot of potential. Because up until this point, I was not very much sold on Solo Sikoa. And I still believe right now that Jacob's going to lap him. It's not even close. Jacob is going to be a bigger star, a huge star for WWE. The fact that he put forth all that effort to drop all the weight to be able to move the way he did, and he looks so good in the ring. Oh my God, he's so good. That was probably Triple H's best get.
And the bummer is Jacob Fatu comes out of SummerSlam in a walking boot.
Kayfabe. That was a kayfabe injury, and he sold it so well that everybody thought he injured his leg. However, they kayfabed it, him selling a leg injury, because they didn't want him and Roman to interact in the ring quite yet, because all of what they've done to build Jacob Fatu up until this point, to have him get wiped out by Roman Reigns and Roman's return would not have done any favors for Jacob Fatu. And he wore the boot to really sell it.
All right.
I'm telling you, Jay, this guy, I never thought that there'd be a time where I said that, a Braun Breaker or Gunther or all these guys are going to be my favorite. Nah. When Sheamus is retired, it's going to be Jacob Fatu. I've seen enough. That guy is a stud. That is a workhorse. That is the Samoan werewolf, and he is going to be a huge star for WWE.
Okay.
But we got to the match. Obviously, like we had mentioned, Arn Anderson, showed up, told Cody, you got friends, you got backup, they're on their way. Even somebody you're not expecting. So the match goes off. They're having a pretty solid match, doing the thing. Cody goes to have the advantage at one point, and boom, the Tongas come in. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. I need to say this.
Okay.
I have been a wrestling fan for over 35 years at this point. It wasn't very long ago that a 5-year-old brainless one was turning on the Saturday morning cartoons, and after Saturday morning cartoons were over, wrestling was on the television. I have seen my fair share of great matches, great characters, great promos, but I've also seen my fair share of botches, bad promos, and just awful characters. Tonga Loa, all he had to do was shove Cody into the corner. How in the fucking hell did that man completely miss the turnbuckle? I have been watching, like I said, wrestling for over 35 years, Cousin Jay. I have never, ever, it was just as bad as primetime Brian Lee leaving the Z-Man in the corner. In fact, I think what Tonga Loa did was much worse than what the primetime Brian Lee did to the Z-Man. It was that awful.
Come on. Let's be serious for a minute.
It was bad enough he missed the low blow shot at Money in the Bank on Kevin Owens. The fact that he followed it up, it's to a point now, I'm convinced he's doing it on purpose. Kevin Owens kayfabe ripped his eye out of his head so he wasn't part of the tag team tournament thing that they crowned the number one contenders to make poor El Jefe cry last week when Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa lost the tag team titles. The guy is awful. I mean, awful. It's like watching me wrestle. That's how bad it is. It was just like, how do you miss the turnbuckle? How do you fucking miss the turnbuckle? The fact that Cody knew he was going in the wrong direction, he wasn't even looking in the direction. He was going backwards. That ain't the turnbuckle. That's the turnbuckle. Thank God for Tama Tonga. That's all I'm going to say.
You didn't even hit him with the chair, Dad.
You didn't even hit him with the turnbuckle, Dad. But of course, they get in there and they have the advantage, and it looks like they're gonna, Solo's gonna get the win, and then of course, Kevin Owens makes his triumphant return. His music hits. He runs out there, starts beating up on the Tongans. Then the numbers game finally gets to the better of him, and then lo and behold, Randy Orton's music comes out. My favorite part about Randy Orton coming out to the ring was he was slapping fives with the fans as he made his way to the ring, which is the second most egregious thing I've ever seen a human being do during a run-in save of other people since Jeff Hardy danced trying to save Matt Hardy. I give Randy the benefit of the doubt because it's Randy Orton. He is an absolute legend. I don't care that Jeff Hardy's been doing it a hell of a lot longer. Randy Orton never gave us, what was it, Bound for Glory 2011?
Victory Road.
Victory Road 2011. I'm sorry, I knew it was one of them. I think it's because Bound for Glory is coming up soon. If I'm not mistaken.
Mike Rainey wants to ask you a very, very, very important question. Tonga Loa or Nia Jax? Who's worse?
See, I'm gonna say Nia Jax is worse. Just because she broke Becky Lynch's face with a punch. And then went out and tried to say, oh, my hand is hurt. And fuck you, bitch. You hurt my eyes every time you wrestle. God damn.
She hurt our truth.
She hurt our truth. She's hurt Bayley. She's hurt Charlotte. She's hurting everybody. Tonga Loa is just a derp. That's what the problem is. How do you miss a nut shot and you miss a turnbuckle in the span of a month? I can't wait because I've been dying to see the Gorillas of Destiny team up in WWE and go up against the Usos, the New Day, the Street Profits, Gargano and Ciampa. I've been chomping at the bit for this, especially if Motor City Machine Guns en route to WWE.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, well, at least Tama Tonga can wrestle. And he can wrestle. That dude's good. Tama Tonga is actually a really good in-ring performer. Tonga Loa, oh my God, it's bad. But, they got in the ring. They made it all better. Cody had the advantage. the Tongans get chased off by Randy and Kevin, so it's just Cody and Solo in the ring. It looks like Cody's got the advantage again, goes for the third crossroads, and here comes Jacob Fatu. And him and Solo beat the shit out of Cody. Cody kicks out. Solo tells Jacob to put Cody through a table, so Jacob goes out there, posts him on the table, climbs up to the top rope, jumps off, splashes on the table, sells the hell out of a leg injury. I could be wrong. I've heard it was kayfabe. That's what. Okay. Again, my two sources are Sean Sucks Sapp and Jim Cornette. One person who I will actually believe, because why would he lie about Jacob Fatu, and the other guy who's a lousy scumbag crybaby from Kentucky. And I'm not talking about Cornette, even though they're both from Kentucky. I thought it was good. Cody gets back in the ring, him and Solo have the thing, and then Roman's music hits. And out comes the tribal chief, making his way to a huge pop. He got a huge pop. Everybody was wondering. They even made the mention like Hogan at Bash at the Beach 96. So what side is Roman on? I'm sorry, that was not as much of a shocker what side Roman was on, considering the fact that Solo Sikoa took out Roman Reigns' wise man.
Wise man. And when you wear a shirt that says OTC.
Over the counter.
Yes. Now, Jessica in chat asked, when do we believe we will see the return of the wise man?
Tonight.
I think it's highly possible it's tonight, but he could also possibly still be at home selling the fact that he got a triple power bomb by one of the worst wrestlers of all time with two pretty good ones.
No, Jacob Fatu, this is the quickest this has ever happened. Jacob Fatu is already in GOAT status for the Brainless one. I'm sorry. I've seen enough. I don't need to see anything more. Jacob Fatu is going to be a star. He's only 32. Jacob Fatu, I was like, this dude's like 36, 37. He's 32. My back hurt just hearing that. That kid, they got at least a decade they can get out of Jacob Fatu. He's going to win championships. He's going to win a lot of championships in WWE. He might go down as one of the most decorated Samoan wrestlers of all time when it's all said and done. I mean, he's not going to be The Rock. That's about it. That's the only one he's not going to, in my opinion.
You think he's going to pass out Roman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm on the Jacob. I'm drinking that Jacob Fatu Kool-Aid. But I know better than to argue about the final boss, the great one, the most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment.
Well, and let's not forget Roman's highest honor. Highest. Multiple time, undefeated, Marquee Award winner for wettest hair.
To be fair,
dominance continues.
To be fair, if Jacob Fatu had just, sprinkled a little water in his hair to really sell the wet hair, I might have had some competition from Roman from me this year.
And Roman cut his hair off a little bit.
He did.
When I saw that, I'm like, it's not less wet. There's just less hair to get wet.
Yes.
But his hair has not dried since he entered FCW.
I'm going to say this. Only one other time in the history of Roman Reigns' career in WWE was I ever happier to see him than when I was on Saturday. And I never thought I'd see that day. And that other time was when he came back and beat non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was very happy to see him, but that's because it's personal and it's a health issue he was dealing with, and I was glad to see him then. And I'm glad he got the reaction he got when he returned then. He deserved that pop he got on Saturday. I don't care what anybody says. He deserved it. He needed to be back.
Yeah.
But he hit the Superman punch. He hit a spear, looked at Cody, exited the ring. Cody picked him up. Crossroads, 1, 2, 3. Cody wins the match.
And then there was this little part after Cody won the match when when Samantha Irvin, the GOAT, announced the winner and undisputed WWE champion. Like Roman had that like sad I was the champion.
I'm going to tell you right now, if Netflix forces their hand and they put the World Heavyweight title on Roman and he goes to Raw and he takes the title from Gunther, I'm going to be freaking fuming. Roman doesn't need the title. He's at that point now where he has superseded the championship. Roman is a bigger deal than any of the championships in WWE now. I'm sorry. He has done everything he could. What is he going to do? What does he have left to prove as a champion? He just had the longest modern day reign that we're never going to see. I don't think it's, well, I say that now, but Gunther's World Heavyweight Champion. That man has gotten Gunther has the most accumulated time percentage-wise of being in WWE as champion. He's been champion 80% of his time in WWE, which is incredible to think.
Right.
But I'm happy to see Roman. I'm curious to see where they go, and this is definitely leading to Wars games at some Survivor Series.
Sure.
Game-based Survivor
It's going to be awesome. And the thing was, with SummerSlam, even though some of the matches were not all they could have been, I thought the storytelling, by and large, was really good.
I agree.
You use what happened in the first match, and you're like, what's going to become of the Spooky Pals now? And then, we got what we got in the Heavyweight Championship match, and then we got the unveiling of the new Spooky Pals with Finn Balor as the leader. So
the guy who was brought in after not only losing the match, but eating the pinfall, and then ended up replacing Adam Edge in the Spooky Pals, is now the leader of the Spooky Pals. With Dom, Liv, Carlito, and JD Funko Fuck. How is that a stable?
I don't know, but they made the Spooky Pals 2.0 work. Can they make 3.0 work?
No, because they don't have their two most important members of the Spooky Pals. I'm sorry.
They do have Dominic Mysterio, though.
No, I understand that they have Dominic Mysterio. But nobody, and I mean nobody, from the Spooky Pals benefited more from being in the Spooky Pals than Rhea Ripley. She became she's the biggest woman star they have now. I don't care what anybody says. No disrespect to Becky, no disrespect to Charlotte, no disrespect to Bianca,
Charlotte,
Bayley.
Or Becky, to be fair, is not with the company anymore.
But even we know she's coming back at some point, unless she retires. She's either retiring or she's going back to WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if she's gone for a year and then comes back. I'm just saying, she is the biggest woman star they have. Damian Priest really showed out, was able to prove that he is the guy that they thought they were. Yes, Dominic has done incredible character work. Rhea Ripley was the backbone of the Spooky Pals. Even when Adam Edge was in it, she was still the backbone of the Spooky Pals.
All right. It looks like we're going to get Captain Cupcake versus Cody at Bash at Berlin.
Why?
That is one thing I'll say about Cody's reign so far. I know that he wants to be a fighting champion and be out there all the time defending the title. The stuff he had with AJ was fine, but there was no real big storyline going. Everything after the Roman storyline, to be fair, was not going to measure up. You're talking about something that had been built up over years.
Yeah.
But, thrust into, having the match with AJ Styles. Then after AJ unsuccessful the first time, they built the story a little bit more and had the second match.
Yep.
They built up the story between like him and the Bloodline, which was still kind of a continuation of the storyline from, Roman, just different players involved. Right. And built that up a bit better, but like the KO thing seems like another like going, oh, let's just throw a guy in there. And KO will talk it into being something interesting. They'll probably have a fine match, but there's not this like huge personal animosity because we just saw KO help Cody Rhodes
on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it has to do with the fact that WWE really has an overabundance of face stars, which is great that they have all of these baby faces, because that was the biggest thing, is they didn't have enough. But now they have Cody, they got Kevin Owens, they got Randy Orton, they got Sami Zayn, and they got CM Punk, and they got Seth Rollins, and they got LA Knight, and they have all these top level baby faces. Like, who do they have for heels? You have Gunther,
Logan
and you have
Paul.
Logan Paul. I mean, I don't think we're going to be seeing Logan Paul for a while, unless him and LA Knight have a rematch at Bash in Berlin, which I would be surprised, because I don't think Germany. I don't even think Germany wants that fucking scumbag. They've already dealt with a scumbag in Germany. They're not going to deal with a second one. But this was a problem that they were going to endure.
I mean, Roman was the top heel for forever,
and now he's back as a face. Randy's got to turn.
Really, what this means, if you have an imbalance, it's just time to turn Randy.
Yeah. It's either that or LA Knight's going to eventually turn heel again, which is fine, because I like him as a face, but
he's funnier as a heel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he could bring back the dummy button. Dummy. Yeah. I'd be on board with that. But I think that's the problem, is they don't have enough established heels to go up against Cody Rhodes, because you're not going to have him go up against like Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, I mean, like what we saw on Monday with Bronson Reed, like he hasn't been built up enough to be a thing. I mean, yeah, Cody's on SmackDown, but like you've got some guys who maybe potential down the line. Braun Breaker can be the heel, but he needs more time.
I mean, you could bring in somebody but Ludwig Kaiser, but like, is Ludwig Kaiser really one of those guys you can put in the ring with Cody Rhodes as the champion? You're not going to put Theory in the ring with him. You're not going to put Grayson Waller in the ring with him.
And you can't put like Pete Dunne with him at this moment.
Pete Dunne's just doing everything else right now. He's feuding with Sheamus on Raw, and he's wrestling down in NXT. Pete Dunne is the new CM Punk from when CM Punk was wrestling on ECW but was appearing on Raw and SmackDown, and he was just everyday CM Punk. That's what we get with Pete Dunne, which I'm fine with, because all the Pete Dunne, you give me all the Pete Dunne. Had a solid match with Trick Williams on Wednesday, and he won on Tuesday. I'm sorry. But you don't really have somebody else. And I guess because Kevin Owens is a main event caliber guy, but I don't know. Maybe we'll have to find out what we're missing.
And another person who is returning is AJ Styles.
Yes.
Returning tonight. Don't know what for. Like, is he returning as a face or a heel? He probably should remain a heel, just speaking of what we talked about.
Yeah.
He should not go back against Cody anytime soon, because he lost twice. So.
And he doesn't wear extravagant outfits to garner a third match.
Well, and just the way that they ended that damn I quit match, it was so weak to me.
Yeah.
Everything else in that match was good, and then, like, really? Just give up. All right. I don't like it.
There's just like Darby Allin asking one of the Jackson fuckheads if he doesn't call the match. If he doesn't give up, he's going to set Jungle Boy on fire. And I'm like, man, the one time I hope both members of the Jackson families had laryngitis, just so I could have seen Darby Allin set Jungle Jerk turd and fucking fire. Ugh. I would have paid to see that. The only time I would have tuned into AEW was to watch Jungle Boy get set on fire, and then hopefully the Bucks try to put it out, and they get caught on fire, and just all hell breaks loose. Don't ask for much.
Well, speaking of SmackDown, Michael Cole signed a new contract and will be the voice of SmackDown, and I believe it's starting next month. They're trying to give Joe Tessitore a little bit of time to get acclimated to WWE, but I'm pretty sure we're going to find out shortly that Pat McAfee will also be moving to SmackDown with him.
I don't know. I think I would not be surprised if McAfee stayed on Raw, just because it would be a lot easier for him to work the commitments of doing, the commentary on Mondays as opposed to Fridays, because from Fridays he would have to go to – he's got the college football thing. Or he's just going to get written off like he did last time, and we'll get probably Wade Barrett and Michael Cole on SmackDown, and Corey Graves can work with Joe Tessitore. I'm excited for Joe Tessitore. I think he's going to absolutely kill it. He can't do any worse than Adnan Virk, and he definitely can't do any worse than Jimmy Smith.
Well, and I don't know if you remember him, but growing up in Connecticut, he was the sports guy on Channel 3.
Joe Tessitore, yes, he was.
And then he ended up at ESPN and was doing Friday night fights for quite a while, and just slowly but surely kind of made his way up the ranks. And I think he called some Monday night football games.
He did.
I mean, he's done a lot.
He's very
Joe
good.
Tessitore, professional announcer, and I don't know how much of a into wrestling he is. I'm gonna guess he is a little bit.
They had introduced him at the pre-show. Michael Cole had introduced him, and they talked to Joe Tessitore, and he said, "This is great for me because I grew up as a wrestling fan." And I'm like, "Thank you. That's all I needed to hear." Joe Tessitore is not going to be Mike Adamle on the broadcast team. That's all that matters. He's not going to be.
Mike Adamle was great.
Mm-hmm, great and terrible. Not even great, just terrible. Jeff Harvey. You mentioned Stephanie from earlier. I'll never forget when she botched a line and she goes, "Oh, I just pulled an Adamle."
Chris Brown, Scott Stanford was very fine when they actually had him on the road. I think he just doesn't have the time to do all the stuff like flying from place to place. I think Stanford possibly, I think, could work with Triple H. I think Stanford has a family, and the demands by the former head of the company were too much. That's my guess. Because that person likes to pretend that people's families don't exist, and if their bodies are broken, just tape it up and go in the ring.
Pal.
No big deal, pal.
I'll just shit on this secretary's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good for Michael Cole. He has been a new man since Pat McAfee became an announcer and became a newer man once the dastardly Voldemort left WWE for good.
Yeah. Dastardly Vince McMahon. That was still one of our best ones.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you have on your list that you want to talk about?
I have a couple of little tidbits that I wanted to talk about.
All right.
First of all, it looks like Rey Fenix and Pentagon Jr. are going to be WWE bound. There was a lot of rumors going around that when their contracts are up in AEW, which is I think next month, that Phoenix and Pentagon are both going to be WWE bound. That has been the rumor going around the locker room and everything. And then it came out today that Rey Fenix was scheduled for an independent show in September and had to decline, which a lot of people are thinking, well, if he's turning down independent shows, that means we're going to be seeing Rey Fenix in WWE. Another
they could
tag
go
team.
against the Guerrillas of Destiny.
I would love to see them go up against any of the tag teams. I think they're going to get better utilized. And I remember when they first signed with AEW, I said I really wanted to see them go to WWE, and it's a shame. And now they're going to be in WWE, and I'm happy for them because I like this. I really like Rey Fenix and Pentagon. Pentagon's got such a unique look. I enjoy it, and they're both they're very much spot fest wrestlers, but I enjoy them, and I like to see them in WWE.
Yeah.
Another thing, we got the Wyatt 6 debut match on Monday Night Raw in the main event. Yep. Man, does Joe Gacy just fits in like a glove? Does he not?
I'm not going to say Brainless won. This is a complete 180 by you, but like you used to call him Walmart brand Bray Wyatt. I think he's just upped his game. He's with other people that he needs to up his game. Otherwise, he's going to get lost in the shuffle or left behind.
I enjoy it because his character down in NXT was too much. He was trying to be Waylon Mercy, Bray Wyatt so bad, and it didn't work, and he was this cult hero. Putting him as a lunatic with a bunch of other crazy people works because he looks the part, he dresses the part, he acts the part. He is absolutely perfect for the Wyatt 6, and I'm really happy for him. I said, and when he was even being mentioned for it, I said, you know what? I'm intrigued by Joe Gacy being a part of this because he has the potential to actually do something and actually prove to me that he's not just some Aldi's brand Bray Wyatt. I wanted to see him in a different light. And seeing Dexter Lumis back on TV always makes me happy because I've always been a fan of Dexter Lumis. So seeing him with the long blonde dreadlocks and looking like he hasn't seen a shower in like 6 months. Looks like he showers about as much as Luke Harper did when he was part of the OG Wyatt family, where he had that one tank top shirt that always had the sweat stains on it.
Yes.
But they look good. They look crisp. My only issue is I didn't like the fact that the Creed brothers were part of that and ended up as the losing factor. Obviously, Gable eating the pinfall made it a little bit better, but I was happy to see them, and I'm glad that they had that moment on Raw.
Yeah.
And then the only other note I have was Wes Lee, the greatest NXT North American champion of all time, teamed up with Zachary Wentz on NXT this week to battle Axiom and Brendan Fraser. I'll be right. Nathan Fraser, whatever they're called, Fraxium, or whatever the fuck their thing is. And they've been teasing this whole breakup of the tag team champions. They go over, retain the titles. Wesley gets so upset, he attacks both Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, saying, "You guys left me here alone, and this is what you get." Although Trey Miguel never was in WWE, so I don't know how he left them behind. But I enjoyed it. I have no idea what the hell they're going to do with this. This just seems like it's going to end up in a no-directional type of thing, and Wesley's going to be back to being a face in about 3 months. But I had to mention it because it was part of the whole thing.
Jessica in the chat saying she's sad because the Wyatt 6 are doing such an amazing job. What could have been
with Bray Wyatt
if Bray was still here?
It would have been tremendous.
Yeah, so the one other note I've got is Scott D'Amore is coming back to pro wrestling. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, which was a company, was an entity before, and it sounds like D'Amore. I'm gonna guess he owns it. They have like a tape library that they have now put up, but he is now booking 2 shows in October. We're going to have the Jinder on the card. Kushida is going to be on the card.
Josh Alexander.
Yep. So, he's got a few names that will be part of that first 2 shows that they do. I think it's October 19th and 20th. So, it's been almost radio silence since he was fired in February. So clearly he's been behind the scenes plotting and planning his return. Good for him. It was crappy what happened to him after he had done all those great things to rebuild TNA after the debacle that was Dixie Carter.
The Dixie debacle. Ah!
5-star bet dog splash. What?
No, that was the good Dixie. We're talking about the not so good Dixie who would not be in the F.M. Marks Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I'm happy for Scott D'Amore. I really am. I'm glad he's getting this chance and this opportunity. I really was hoping he was going to end up in WWE. It would have been beneficial for him to go to AEW because, hell, AEW could have used a booker like Scott D'Amore because that's their biggest issue is they don't have anybody booking the show. And now you see what this absolute dumpster fire that does 600,000 views. I made it 2 hours. I don't care. Oh,
all right.
But good for Scott D'Amore. I'm glad that he is getting this chance, and I'm curious to see how the show goes for him. Nothing but good luck for him.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got.
Well, I only got one other thing besides my good, bad, and brainless.
Yeah.
And that is my top 10 list that was inspired by certain actions that occurred on Saturday.
Okay.
And no, it's not going to be a top 10 list of the shittiest special guest referees, although that would have been a good one. I decided for this one, I will do the top 10 betrayals in wrestling.
Okay.
And I tried my hardest, Jay. I really did to come up with a list that was so diverse of wrestling. And then at the end of it, I ended up with like 9 out of 10 with WWE. And the one that I did outside of WWE has WWE stars in it. But anyway.
Right.
The top 10 betrayals in wrestling history. Number 10, and I bet you this would be higher up on a lot of other people's lists, but because of personal reasons, I'm putting it at the 10th spot. Austin joined forces with Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 17. I was so disgusted and abhorrently pissed off about that moment that I actually stopped watching wrestling for about 2 to 3 years. That's how pissed off I was about it because it made no sense that the guy who the greatest rivalry in wrestling, I don't care what anybody says, Austin and Vince McMahon and Vince and Austin joining for it was stupid. Number 9, Sergeant Slaughter betrays the United States and becomes an Iraqi sympathizer in the early 90s.
That was crazy.
Number 8, Evolution turned on Randy Orton. The infamous moment of Batista holding Orton up when he's got the championship and Triple H. Yeah. Had to be in my top 10.
Yeah.
Number 7, and it's not only just one of my personal favorites, but it's also a wrestling collectibles action figure set that I would really like to get my hands on, and that's number 7, the Festival of Friendship between Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. The only time I would ever want Kevin Owens as an action figure is in that set. Fat piece of shit. Doesn't even deserve a title match at freaking Bash in Berlin. Ugh. Number 6, one of my personal favorites, and it was just done so perfectly and so far out of right field that I had to put it on my list. Number 6 was when Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox at War Games down at NXT. It was done so perfectly. I really enjoyed that one. I'm sure it's not anywhere near anybody else's top 10 list, but because I'm a fan of Dakota Kai and it was so well done, I had to put it on there. Number 5, my outside the WWE one. Ted DiBiase turns on the Junkyard Dog at Mid-South Wrestling in 1982. And it ultimately leads to Ted DiBiase jumping ship to WWE and becoming one of their more dastardly heels, the $1 Million Man. But at the time, anybody who turned on the Junkyard Dog, who was the biggest face in Mid-South, that's a pretty huge deal. So I had to put it on there.
Okay.
Because it is the JYD. Number 3, and we did mention this one earlier, and I'm glad that you did because it ends up on here. I'm sorry, I can't even do my math right. Number 4, Andre the Giant turns on Hulk Hogan on Piper's Pit, leading to their match at WrestleMania 3, where Hulk Hogan tore every ligament in his back, body slamming 700-pound Andre the Giant. The single greatest moment in wrestling history, Hogan slamming the Giant. Don't care what anybody says. You can argue me all you want. You're all going to be wrong. Number 3, Hulk Hogan betrays WCW and joins the NWO Bash at the Beach 1996.
Okay.
Number 2, talk about iconic betrayals. It doesn't get any more iconic than this. Seth Rollins turns on the Shield is number 2. To think of the trajectory of those men's careers where Roman became the tribal chief, Seth Rollins became the visionary, and Dean Ambrose became Plumber Mox. Honestly, it's one of the greatest betrayals of all time. Cousin Jay, that is 2 through 10. Would you care to venture a guess at what the number 1 betrayal is for the Brainless one of his top 10 betrayals of all time in wrestling?
It's easy. Jannetty.
What about Jannetty?
The barbershop window. Shawn Michaels.
When he ran
away from Shawn Michaels and threw himself through the window. That was a great betrayal.
That's my favorite heel turn of all time. I don't care what anybody says. Shawn Michaels super kicking and then throwing Jannetty through the barbershop window will never, ever be surpassed. I mean, we're talking like 30 years at this point now. One of the greatest moments. I don't care what anybody says. And everybody's like, oh, what would have happened if it was Marty Jannetty that turned on Shawn Michaels? Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. Shawn was definitely the bigger star.
I still love R-Truth turning on John Morrison in England.
I wanted to put that one on there too, but I was like, Mike, I don't know which one I would take out. And I had to put Austin turning, joining forces with Vince was huge, huge. Andre turning made that story for WrestleMania 3. Without WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 40 never would have happened. Trust me when I tell you, Hogan needed to slam the Giant. But yeah, I had to put Dakota Kai on there. It was so perfectly executed. I love that one so much.
For me, there were a couple of ones from WCW that could have probably made that list. Road Warriors turning on Dusty and spiking him.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that one.
I mean, they couldn't leave the ring.
Yeah, I really do. I'm upset that I didn't put that one on there. I was trying to remember that one, and then I just came up with other ones.
And then there was when Lex Luger turned on Sting. He was giving him all these little gifts, this, that, and the other thing, and Luger ended up bashing his knee in and, wanting to take down Sting after years of friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, the Road Warriors one on Dusty it crossed my mind. And then when I was putting the list together and I didn't put it on there, and then I just realized I forgot to put that one on there because that one is iconic. The Road Warriors turning on Dusty and the fact they couldn't even leave the ring.
And if you want to go to world class, when Michael P.S. Hayes in the Freebirds turned on the Von Erichs.
Oh, is that when he slammed the door on Kerry's face in the
yeah? That's when Terry Gordy slammed the door on his face.
I remember that one. I missed a couple. I'll admit that. I should have went a little bit more expanded. I could have taken a couple out. In fact, I really should have put the Dusty one on there more than any other one.
Yeah.
Although that freaking when Bam Bam destroyed freaking Kerry Von Erich's face with the cage, I mean, that was so good. But looks like
such good shit, man.
It's such good shit, man. Well, I think it's time now for our good,
our bad,
and our brainless. What did I just do?
No, I just pointed to you. Brainless.
Oh no, I touched it. I touched the screen and something happened, so I didn't know what happened.
Something's happening.
Anyway, what do you got for your good this week, Cousin Jay?
There were a lot of things I could have gone with, but I am just gonna flat out go with Bronson Reed's absolute demolishing of Seth Franklin Rollins on Monday Night Raw. It was awesome.
They did such a great job with that, and I was going to get consideration. I'm going with LA Knight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. From where he came from to where he is now, the fact that he was almost on the verge of getting fired and is now the United States champion, not even 2 years later, or 2 years later exactly, is great. So I'm very happy for Sean Ricker. He gets my good for this week.
Okay.
What do you got for your bad?
Nia Jax. That's it.
That's the answer right there. For me, I'm going with. I know you're going to be surprised by this. I'm going with AEW.
What?
Yeah, I know you're shocked. You're absolutely shocked. You're stunned. Yeah, you did not see this coming.
This is a shocking is stuff that happens at the end of this show that always never happens. Never always happens.
It's that Bristol Central education. You're not going to ask a Bristol Easternite to do something like that because I'm going to be here all night, so that's not going to happen. Using proper English was not. I failed English. That's impossible. I did, but that's besides the point. Shit, I lost my train of thought.
What did AEW do this week?
Yes. So AEW, besides the fact that they did a 600,000 viewership, which is the third lowest total in AEW history for Dynamite, blamed it on the Olympics. Right. But the fact is that you have All In and All Out on the verge of happening again, and all that is being talked about with your company, especially after we were told that once CM Punk was gone, all the drama was going to be gone. But I have been for the whole last week, because we talked about it last week. This whole past week, that's all I've heard about was this stupid confrontation between Britt Baker and Alicia Attal and MJF, to the point where Conan comes out and does an interview saying that Britt Baker played a part in Cody and Brandy leaving AEW because she had differences of opinions of Britt Baker. So all of this stuff is coming out when we were told all the drama was done because CM Punk is gone, and yet it's a train wreck. It's a shit show. It's awful. So I have to give him my bad this week. Between the 600,000 rating on Dynamite this week, and then the fact that this whole drama has been dragged out for an entire week when you got Swerve and all of your stars booked for this great show and nobody's even talking about it. Nobody. They're talking about drama in the AEW locker room, and it needs to be fixed, and never will, unless what the BBC report was true. Whatever.
Jessica said it was not.
Okay.
So.
Okay, good. That means he did not go the way of Herb Abrams, Hooker and Blow.
Yeah.
Not the way he wanted to go.
Yeah.
What do you got for your Brainless?
I'm going a little bit in a different direction. Why, during all these world title matches, is there always some sort of run-in or screwy finish? Most of Roman's wins as champion, there was some sort of screwy finish. Almost all of them.
Like the handcuffs not uncuffing.
We got another screwy finish in that match. We got a screwy match in the Gunther match.
We got a screwy finish in the women's world title match.
So I understand sometimes you want to keep somebody strong. But if you do the run-ins all the time, people are either going to, one, get tired of it, or two, they might be excited for it, but they know the match isn't going to end until somebody runs out.
Right.
So you're making it predictable and going, hey, I wonder who's going to come out. Oh, it would make sense for these people.
Right.
I want them to start having more clean finishes. They've had far too many of these Impact heavyweight championship matches, women's championship matches. Just happens too much.
Hell, if I'm not mistaken, every match other than the Intercontinental title match, I mean, that was a title match of the 5 of the 6 title matches at SummerSlam. There was some kind of screwy finish to them. The only one that didn't have it was the Intercontinental title, and that was the only finish that felt flat. Because Tiffy got involved in that match. Logan Paul got the freaking brass knucks from Machine Gun Kelly, and they all kind of attacked LA Knight, and he was beating up people. They were all a bunch of screwy finishes. So I think that's a good call. That is a very good call, Cousin Jay. I like that as your Brainless this week.
What do you have as your Brainless?
You're going to be just as surprised as my bad. Tony Khan, the now confirmed, still alive Tony Khan, gets my Brainless this week. He came out and did an interview and said that WWE, there's people out there that are trying to see us fail and sabotage this company. You are absolutely right.
All right, I think we lost the Brainless one. I think I know where Brainless one was going here. I think I know where he was going. I think he was going to say that Tony Khan is sabotaging his own company, and it's just he needs to look in the mirror. Tony Khan, dude, give up the book, give it to somebody else, let them figure out the show. That's why you should have got Scott D'Amore. Should have got Scott D'Amore, but you are the problem.
And honestly, it's the biggest thing with Tony Khan, and that he's saying that there's people out there sabotaging it. He plays a big role in this. His EVPs play a big role in this. And the most important one, and I cannot stress this enough, his fans. The fans of AEW are the ones that drive the casual fans away from the product. I don't want to watch it anymore because you employ a bunch of freaking empty-headed dumb fucks as your EVPs. You give $15 million a year to a woman who has walked out of a wrestling promotion twice. And your fans don't allow any kind of criticism at all. Because they're going to go after you and they're going to jump all over you. And this isn't like something that's just happened recently. Ever since AEW has become a thing, and believe me, I've gone on social media, I've shat all over WWE. I couldn't even tell you how many times I shit all over WWE. But I can't say a negative thing about AEW without the butt trolls coming out and freaking getting butthurt about it. Tony Khan, yes, there are people who are sabotaging your company, that want to see it fail, but it's the fans of your promotion, yourself, and your EVPs. That Tony Khan, and on top of the fact that nobody in your company knows how to keep their mouth shut and not talk about WWE, is the reason why you get my Brainless this week.
Yeah?
Yeah? Anyway, if you like what you see, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, X, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F and Marks. Like, follow, subscribe to us. We will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra, and make sure you set up notifications so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are alive, whether it is on the X, whether it's on the YouTube, or whether it's on the Facebooks. So you could join in the conversation about our favorite sport we all love to hate, professional
all elite wrestling.
Yeah.
And the New York Jets. Make sure
Yeah.
everybody knows the New York Jets. I think that's everything.
Yeah, think that wraps it all up. We have absolutely nothing else to talk about.
Except one thing. And what is that one thing, Curtis Axel? Well, Brainless One, did you know today, August 9th of 2024, at an astonishing 3,484 days, I, Reverend Mark Hall of Famer, am still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Down, down, down,
So, anyway, for episode 369 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the Marks,
I'm Jay. He is.
I am the Brainless One. And you make sure you mark out.
With your guac out. See you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Catch you next week.
Yeah.
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 Yeah.